If we could come to order, everybody's got some food, everybody got something to eat, right? How many places you go to where they feed you first? All right. I'm ready when you are. We roll. All right. If you have your phone, feel free to share the stream with family and friends. It is on YouTube. Make it plain. Facebook, Make It Plain, among other places. It's on your Facebook? Mm-hmm. New Jersey Institute of Social Justice. So you can share the stream. Common Cause, why don't y'all share it on your Facebook or whatever. But it's all right there. There's Common Cause in here, y'all. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome once again to this historic place. And of all the events we do in Selma, probably the most visually stunning place to have a panel, because we are literally right here near the bridge, and you can see it in the backdrop. This obviously is a sacred place. There was no democracy before what happened here. This is the birthplace of democracy, and I often say it is this nation's Calvary when you think about it, because people shed blood. Jesus said, shed blood for the sins of the world. Those here on Bloody Sunday shed blood for the original sins of America. And so this is a sacred place. And I always like to ask you, how many of you are here for the first time? Look at that. Wow. Look at that. Amen. I'm going to say this to you, a word of advice. Take a moment today or at dawn in the morning before the crowd gathers tomorrow. Go there by yourself and pause and meditate and pray and take in the sacredness of the moment. This is equivalent as to when we go to Africa and we go to the doors of no return. This is the same effect. This is a very important place. So we will begin. It's an honor to be here with you once again. We will begin with a special greeting from the pastor of the church from where the march started. There were several churches involved in the movement, but it was at Brown where the marches began. The first march, Bloody Sunday. The second march, Turnaround Tuesday. That's before Dr. King and them had won the permit and the protection of the National Guard. And then the third and ultimate march, which went all the way to Montgomery. March 21st also started at Brown Chapel. We're honored to have with us the pastor of Brown Chapel, a stalwart. He is the shepherd of that historic cathedral. And so as he comes, before he comes, the board chair is going to come forward. Correct? Didn't we just say that? Of the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice. With these bad t-shirts on, they're going to tell us what they mean. I think I know what they mean. But let her say it for the record. And share with everyone your words about Pastor Strong and what you all did for him today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Can tell we're in the South because you know how to respond. It is, on behalf of the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, it's really a privilege to be here today. And the main reason I'm here is not to just thank everyone and to thank Brown and the pastor from Brown, but also, if you recall last year, for those of you who were here last year, we talked about being accountable. And everybody was supposed to have an accountability partner to make sure that you chose one thing that you were going to do and come back this year and talk about it. So I'm not going to call anybody out or ask anybody what they did, but you know whether you did or you didn't. And so in this time that we're in right now, in the current moment, if you have not gotten an accountability partner, or you have not chosen something that you want to be accountable for, especially in this time, now is the time to do it. And I also want to say that I have heard too many people saying with regard to this time, I'm scared, I'm afraid. No, 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 no. We cannot be afraid. We cannot be scared. It's time to be courageous, and courage is infectious. So let's do it. Let's choose what we're going to do to be accountable so that we cannot let time go backwards. and do everything that we can. And while we're here, I had an accountability partner. I'm going to tell on myself. We connected for the first few months and then we dropped off. And so, but we can't drop off because there's too much left to be done and too much to do. We can't roll back. And by the way, DEI is not illegal. The Civil Rights Act has not been repealed. And exactly, by the way. And so we can't, and an executive order does not constitute a law. So let's get busy. Thank you.
Okay. Now she didn't do. Okay. So I just want to say as we bring Pastor Strong up, all of the organizations here, Common Cause, the Lawyers Committee, Southern Poverty, New Jersey Institute, Black Voters Matter got together to give a love offering to support, and the Urban League, I'm sorry, the Urban League as well, National Bar, to support the rebuilding and the renovation of this National Historic Site, Brown Chapel. So as we bring Pastor Strong forward, we're going to take a picture.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, we're going to take a picture.
Hello, hello, everybody. Hello, welcome to Selma. Thank you for coming to Selma. Perhaps you heard the Macedonian cry in Acts chapter 16. Come over into Macedonia and help us. Come to Selma and help us. I want to thank my good friend and brother Ryan O'Neill, who forgets Ryan Haygood. I just wanted to see, you know, we have a stereotype about us that after we eat we go to sleep. I wanted to see, it ain't true. It ain't true. We ain't nobody asleep. Ryan Haygood. Ryan brought this meeting right here to Brown Chapel for several years because of his affinity for people and for the community, that the professionalism that you all represent does not get disconnected from the people whom you represent. And the only reason it's not there and hasn't been for the past couple of years is because we're undergoing a multi-million-dollar restoration. And I'm grateful that the architects are saying it will be completed by next March. So we're hoping that you will bring this meeting back next March. He deserves a bigger hand than that. This is a good brother, great brother. Let me say two things. I hope that recognition of, I don't want to say God, because certainly the institutional church is not the only iconic representative of God. But I do want to suggest that whatever iconic representations of the spirituality, and I know it's much different now, much more individualized than it was institutionalized back then, but those folk grabbed a hold of their own individual concepts of God who marched to that bridge. They did not march to that bridge without some reckoning, some prayerful reckoning that their motives were of God, their motivation, and regardless of whatever opposition they faced, that the God who started out with them would remain with them to the completion of it. And so if you go, as you go to that bridge today, I hope that your own individualized concept of spirituality, your quote-unquote God, will accompany you there, deeply embedded in your own your own spirituality. And then let me say two other things very quickly, and I'll move on out of your way. White Christian nationalism is a perversion of the gospel. It's a perversion that has incorporated some of the most polluted, distorted concepts of Christianity and wears Christianity as a sheep in as a wolf in sheep clothing, but does not represent the organic expression of Christian. There is no Christianity that does not have a concept of social justice. It doesn't exist. The first sermon preached by Jesus after his baptism, Luke chapter 3 and Luke chapter 4, after his having been baptized by John in the river of Jordan, and his fasting for 40 days, and determined to complete his mission against the demonic opposition that confronted him in the wilderness. Then he returns home to Galilee and takes the scroll in the synagogue on the Sabbath, and that was his first sermon. That was his first sermon. He said, the Spirit that led me into the wilderness, the Spirit that spoke to me representing God, this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. The Spirit that preserved me in the wilderness, that led him there to his home synagogue. He said, that Spirit is upon me to preach, has anointed me to preach the gospel, the acceptable year of the Lord, to set the captives free. His first sermon after his own powerful baptism experience, confrontation with all of the demonic forces of hell itself, his first sermon embodied personal salvation as well as social justice. Right. And when he spoke at first about components of personal salvation, that home synagogue wrapped its arms around him, oohed and awed, this is our boy. But then here comes social justice in high D, in HD. He told them, no doubt you're going to say, physician, heal yourself. But then he went on to tell them, there were many lepers in Israel at the time of Elijah, but Elijah didn't heal a single one of them. Elijah healed Naaman, a Syrian, a foreigner, an immigrant. And there were many widows during that same time, but Elijah performed his miracles with the widow of Zarephath, a foreigner, an immigrant. And Jewish nationalism was so berate, so upset in his home synagogue. Jewish nationalism picked him up and marched him to the edge of the hill to throw him down to his Jewish nationalism. White Christian nationalism is as bad as the misrepresentation of God by Jewish nationalism at the time of Jesus Christ himself when he preached his first sermon. Now, let me say this, and then I'm sitting down. How many of you are lawyers? Whether you know it or not, in the aspect of authentic social justice as admonished, preached, lived in the life of Jesus Christ himself, you are our accomplices. More than that, you are accomplices of Jesus himself. You are co-conspirators in the ministry of social justice. You at a minimum, at a very, you are suspects. You cannot avoid it in the implementation. In the life of Jesus, Jewish tradition, there were so many Jewish traditions and customs that were anti-woman, and Jesus did not rubber stamp and endorse them. In John chapter 4, the woman at the well, Jesus violated them all. The Samaritan woman, speaking to her, dealing, he did not rubber stamp the nonsense that had infiltrated the religious customs and traditions out of the culture. He didn't rubber stamp that. It will take your profession, what you do, the legal components of the battles that you are fighting that are in concert, in harmony, that are not an addendum to, but are an organic, in a culture like the one we live in, those social justice credos of the gospel will not be implemented without a fight, and much of that fight is a legal fight taking place and you know it full well. And I know you're committed to those multi-million-dollar settlements that you're going to win on behalf of your clients, and that you're going to get 40%. I understand all that. But don't ever forget that without you guys, without what you do in on the legal stages and legal theaters, what was won on the bridge was lost in the court. And it's still very much under attack in the courts. You are authentic representative. If there is to be a gospel of social justice, it will not come in America. It won't come from white Christian nationalists. It will not come from so-called conservative white Christians. The best representatives of it are going to be the church alongside persons dedicated to social justice as a profession, as you all are. So we appreciate you. We need you. We thank God for the sacrifices that you all make. Then let me just say 30 seconds. No, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not. You sure? Listen. White Christian nationalism has adopted as its demigod a person who doesn't even know the language of Christianity. It is not 2 Corinthians, it's 2 Corinthians. White Christian nationalism has adopted as its demigod a person who doesn't even go to church on any kind of a regular basis. White Christian nationalism, supported by the Heritage Foundation, that writes its script, that writes many of its sermons for its pulpits, cannot be allowed to defeat the concepts of the Constitution of America, and cannot, certainly simply because it dons the apparel of Christianity and becomes like wolves, and it cannot be allowed to win. And it cannot be allowed because your eyes, my eyes, our eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. His glory, His authentic glory, as expressed in both personal salvation and as expressed in organic social justice that emerges organically out of genuine, as my mother would say, genuine Christianity. And because our eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, we know that we have seen the vintage of his fate, of his terrible swift sword. We know that his wrath will be unleashed. We just got to hold on a little while longer. We're going to fight a little while. We know the victory is coming. We know it. It has to come. With you and us combined, joined together, His truth is marching on. And listen, he has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts and minds and souls of women and men before his judgment seat. He never retreats. Never. Oh, be swift. Keep on answering him. It's tough. It's hard. My sister, I see you wearing, my sister works for the federal government. My daughter is going through hell right now with the federal government. What you guys do means too much to all of us. His truth is marching on. Glory, 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 hallelujah.
Pastor Leotis Strong, ladies and gentlemen. He brought the word today, dropping some truth bombs. Y'all all right? All right. Ain't nobody's feelings hurt? Everybody okay? All right. We now want to hear from District 97 in Mobile, Alabama. We're in the Black Belt, y'all. Representative Adeline Clark.
Thank you. Do I have to follow Pastor Strong? Good afternoon. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Alabama legislature, including its 35 state senators and 105 state representatives. If you are not from Alabama, you may not know that we are currently in session. We just ended our 5th week. It was a tough week. I'm not going to use any adjectives to describe it, but it was a rough week. I am honored to have been asked to carry legislation along with State Senator Kirk Hatcher of Montgomery that would create the Alabama Voting Rights Act. There are a number of organizations that comprise the Alabama Voting Rights Coalition that brought these bills to us. They are identical, but I filed the one in the House and Senator Hatcher filed the companion bill in the Senate. We hope, this is the first year, and you know that sometimes it takes longer than 1 year to get a bill passed. Our hope is that we can get at least a public hearing on one of these bills this particular session. If that happens, that will be a huge step, one to grow on for the 2026 legislative session. In case you do not know, there are other voting rights bills that have been filed by Democrats in the Alabama House. One is an early voting bill that was introduced by Representative Thomas Jackson of Thomasville, Alabama. In fact, he has filed that bill probably for as many years as I've been in the state legislature, and I'm about to celebrate my 12th anniversary in the House. I was elected to an unexpired term. Representative Kenyatta Hassel of Montgomery has introduced a bill that would allow absentee voters to have their absentee ballot affidavits cured or corrected if, for example, they forget to sign the affidavit. If you forget to sign it, guess what happens to your vote? It does not count. And we'd like to thank, I saw some members of the League of Women Voters here. We'd like to thank the League for bringing that bill to us several years ago. And Representative Hassel has been continuously working to try to get that bill across the finish line. Our colleague, Representative Ontario Tillman, who's a lawyer in Jefferson County, has filed a bill that would make, if it passes, Election Day what? A holiday. And regarding early voting, you know, it's sad to say that one of the things that I would hear repeatedly when I was first elected to the Alabama legislature on the floor was, thank God for Mississippi. Well, we can't say that much anymore because Mississippi has surpassed us in many ways. However, It, along with, I think, 4 other states, well, Alabama, Mississippi, and 3 other states, are the only ones that don't have some form of early voting. So what does that say to you? Our Secretary of State says that we don't want to compromise our election security. So you think 47 other states have done that? I mean, it's working in 47 other states. Why can't it work in Alabama? So we hope to get that early voting bill passed. We just want you to know that we are working tirelessly to try to make voting more accessible to the citizens of Alabama. I want you to know that it is an uphill battle. We need you. We hope that we can convince our colleagues across the aisle to vote in favor of these bills. But more than that, we need you, the voters, to encourage your legislators in Alabama to vote for these bills and to hold them accountable. So we are delighted today to have this esteemed panel here to talk to us about voting rights. I know that they have a lot of insight and wisdom to share with us. I am just delighted to see such a huge crowd here today that's so interested in this issue, but you wouldn't be in Selma this weekend if you were not. So thank you, and especially to those of you who've traveled from far and wide to be here, welcome to our state. Thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoy celebrating our history here in Selma this weekend. Thank you.
Representative Adeline Clark, give her a round of applause. We're now going to hear, hold on, those of you leaving, hold still. Hold your position, those of you leaving. We're now going to hear now from an NBA superstar. See, my man did it. The other NBA, the National Bar Association, the president, Wiley Adams. Please greet him.
Thank you. Greetings. Well, I will say this, it's always a dangerous thing when you get a mic to a pastor or a lawyer. But greetings, everyone. On behalf of the National Bar Association, I bring you greetings. Distinguished panel, judges, elected officials, and guests. I am Wiley Adams. I am the 82nd president of the National Bar Association. And I'd like to exercise a brief moment of privilege to recognize our past president, Paulette Brown, who is in the house. Our board member at large, Hamid Sahir, who is in the house. I don't see him. Oh, there he is right there. And my partner in justice, the First Lady of the NBA, Lisa Adams. Please rise. So the question was asked, how many of you have been here for the first time? I raised my hand. So I am delighted to be here, and I've flown 5,000 miles to join you here today. And 1 year ago, when I looked at this event, I said, you know what? I need to be there next year. And so I've marked it on my calendar to be here this day, and there is work to be done. What I have envisioned for this day is that we will not leave here. There are many like-minded organizations here. We need to agree to come together and come up with a strategic plan together, because sticks in a bundle don't break. So we need to stick together. Could you please raise your hand, the lawyers who are in the room again? So quite a few lawyers. I will just say a couple things to you. If you are not a member of the National Bar Association, please join today. We have a couple of events coming up in the future where we will continue to fight. The National Bar Association was born in 1925 in Des Moines, Iowa, when we were not allowed a seat at the table at the American Bar Association. And so what our founders did was create their own table. And since that time, we have been engaged in the fight, and we will continue to engage in the fight. We are not just a bar association, we are a social justice organization. And as past President Brown said, accountability, well, and DEI is not illegal. Well, what I will say is the DEI that's practiced in the White House is illegal. Because what I see there is a bunch of nominees who didn't earn it. DEI. They did not earn it. And we have all these qualified folks out here ready for a seat at that table, but when you look at the new White House, they ain't like us. So with that, let's make sure we do not leave here this day, and that when the history books are written, it will be said that the National Bar Association was here, we stood up and we joined with you and we raised our voices in your advocacy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let me just do a little housekeeping, and we're going to get right into the panel. There's living history here in the room, and I'd be remiss, and these also folks that I'm accountable to, because I try to serve in any way they ask me. We have, hold your applause. We're going to go through each one, just going to acknowledge them quickly. The Executive Director of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, Nicole Austin Hillary. Bruce Marks of NACA, who is building homes right here in Selma, Alabama. Spencer Overton of the Joint Center. Where's Spencer? Is he still here? I saw him a minute ago. He left. His mom is here. Mom is here. So she, Maya Wiley, the new Executive Director of the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights. The daughter of Dick and Lillian Gregory is here, Ayanna Gregory as well. And a good friend of ours. I just want to say, we always want to celebrate our young people. Sister Ashe Amah, who is here. She's a parent here in Alabama. Her son, a freshman, has just last night was awarded the title of head major for the Tuskegee University Marching Band. So we want to lift her up. And she's a proud mama. Also here right in front of me, representing the American Federation of Government Employees, Brother Paulos Baker. No, as Pastor Strong alluded to, Trump unilaterally rescinded, destroyed, eliminated, deleted their union contract for the TSA. So 47,000 employees have been kicked out of the union with no protection, so we need to know that. And last but not least, and this is where you can applaud, we have an original foot soldier here. This one I said, any other foot soldiers in the room? All right, there's one. These are those who were on the bridge on Bloody Sunday. She is the youngest. She was only 8 years old, is that right? 8 years old on Bloody Sunday when they were attacked. And she was the youngest to march all the 54 miles to Selma, Alabama. Just want to acknowledge her. Baby Cheyenne Webb Christberg. And that's her with Dr. King. She was Dr. King's favorite. Thank you, Cheyenne. At 8 years old. Now, if she could do that at 8, what can we do today as grown-up adults, all right? All right. Public intellectual, Kimberly Crenshaw is also here. I saw her come in. Kim, where are you? There you are, Kim. Give Kim a round of applause. There you go. All right. I'm going to introduce the panel, and then we're going to get into our conversation, okay? First of all, with us, the president of Common Cause, of which I have now been appointed to the board of Common Cause. Does that make me your boss? Am I? Virginia K. Solomon, give her a round of applause. The president of Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, Damon Hewitt, give his round of applause. The president of the Southern Poverty Law Center, Margaret Wong, give her a round of applause. All these good to be amongst good friends. I'm sorry, we have diversity, and I must acknowledge my others in the face here with Hindus for Human Rights. Hindus for Human Rights is in the room, folks. Thank you, Sunita, for being here. New Jersey Institute for Social Justice president, our dear brother Ryan Haygood. Give him a round of applause. And here, along with her husband, I saw him come in. He expressed some concern last night because his wife and I are on numerous panels today. We're going to be spending, he's watching me, okay. But the co-founder and legal director for Black Voters Matter, which has the blackest bus in America. The bus is here? Y'all see the bus. Get on the bus. April Albright, give her a round of applause. Y'all don't mind if I sit down. So April, we'll start with you since we introduced you last. We're going to go and just if everyone wants to make some opening remarks about why we're here and the state of our democracy, your reflections on it, some brief opening remarks. We'll go down the line. April.
Okay, it is on. Okay, hello everybody. We love coming to Selma. I lived in Selma for 10 years, but I have been coming to Selma before I moved here, and I continue to come back because it is like, you know, when you are a civil rights person and you're a voting rights person, or you just a human rights person, right? No labels. You just want folks to be all right. Coming to Selma and seeing that bridge reminds you that it's okay to live your life wanting everybody to be all right. And so the state of democracy is simple. American democracy has always been becoming. There is no one face of it. Every person in this room, and I don't care if you're a white man, because unless you were, right, a white male, right, Protestant landowner, you really were not included in We the People. So we got to start and level set there, because the version of democracy promised by this country was only for them. So everything after that came about because that same declaration said that when the government ceases, right, to give life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to abolish it and create something new. All of the things that came, all the 13th, 14th, 15th, all of the amendments that we cleave to now to celebrate our citizenship in this country came about because of that part, right? And so democracy in America is continuing to grow and be named. But what I do know is this: the state of democracy is not that, which they define in that declaration. The state of democracy will continue to become what we want it to be. And that is what our discussion is about today. No matter what's happening in D.C., right, it has never deterred people of goodwill, of good conscience, of different faiths, not just one, right, to define and make America be what it wasn't intended to be, but what we want it to be and what we need it to be. So that is the state of democracy.
Yeah. Good evening. Y'all sleeping this afternoon? Good afternoon. I was just checking. This whole seating arrangement is cold-blooded because you don't really want to follow April Albright. And I was just listening to her speak, and I will say, I think that the state of democracy is always what it's been. That is, that it is what we make it. You know, I've been coming to Selma. This is my 20th year coming to Selma, Alabama. It's an incredible moment. I came here as a very young lawyer from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, LaShawn Warren. It's my first time to Alabama. I was at a conference in Montgomery with this young person, Latasha Brown. Yeah. Latasha Brown said, I have these two dope friends. They're married. They're like hashtag what black marriages matter should look like. And they live in Selma. And you can't really understand Alabama without going to Selma and sitting with them. And so I drove over the bridge, and I sat in this hotel. I don't know if it was a hotel then, Cliff, but there was a restaurant, and Cliff had a radio show, and he was recording me on this old school. There were buttons he pushed, two of them to record, right? And the couple I met was Cliff and his wife. We call her the genius, like Wu-Tang Clan, the Jizza, April Albright. Come on. And this was pre-Black Voters Matter. These were just some young folks with a heart for black people who are just trying to understand our place in this world. And what I love about Selma is there's a blueprint for how it happens. That's just not symbolism on the bridge. Like, if we're really serious, and I know you all are, otherwise you could be anywhere, but you've chosen to be here. And what I've learned about this space, our Muslim brothers and sisters take a pilgrimage to Mecca. You might go to Ghana to the point of no return. In America, we have our own Mecca, and that's here. And the blueprint is here, that if we want to change the world in which we live, and we do, because we're here, it's always, always, always started from the ground up in our communities. All we need is the imagination to create what doesn't exist. And you can't do that unless you have fierce resistance. Because in the absence of resistance, not you all, but people generally tend to get lazy and they fall asleep. And Erykah Badu says, but we got to stay woke. And part of staying woke is recognizing the resistance and building what we want to see in the face of it. Last thing I'll say is, when I think about Bloody Sunday, what blows my mind is that they didn't know what they were going to create. Yeah. Because it didn't exist. Right. It'd be like if you set out to be a lawyer as a black person, but you never knew a black lawyer. Somehow they had the vision to see beyond what the opposition actually was to create the world that they wanted to create, and they did their part. And so I welcome you. I'm so thankful to be here. April was joking that Spencer Overton was here with the backpack on, and that was dope, because that means we leveled up. But then I see this Kimberly Crenshaw in the back.
Oh, we leveling
and
up.
That's like level up. And so I welcome you all to this space. I do just want to, before I close, I think too often we wait for people to pass and then we say nice things, but then they pass and it's not as meaningful. So it's important to give shout outs in the presence of family. So I just have a couple quick ones. One is Pastor Strong, who's left. Like when you think about, like in sports, they talk about leaving it all on the field. Like last year, for example, was knee replacement. He should have been in the bed, Teresa Brown, he was here. He now needs hip replacement. You saw, that's why I got behind him. Real talk, I love the man, but also didn't want to fall off the stage, right? And that is what it looks like to give all that you got, in a similar way as Mark Thompson. Yeah. Every year here in Selma, Mark leads the march, among other things, but you rarely see him in the photos. If we get honest. Real talk. Tomorrow people are going to be elbowing, not y'all. Margaret, not you. Folks are going to be throwing elbows to get to the front of the front. Real. Some of them haven't flown in yet.
True.
You'll see it.
You'll see it.
They'll be throwing elbows to get to the front, to get that. And the precious photo, Craig Drinker, is when there's a photo of the march, Kimberly Crenshaw, you see them in the front row. So that's what they have in mind, not y'all, because y'all going to be like, I just want to be in the march, get the photo, of course. Right. But I'm not elbowing folks, Teresa Brown. But the person who always leads the march is Mark. And he throws no elbows. You know why? Because he's not interested in being in the picture. He does this thing he does. So I just want to acknowledge Mark Thompson right now.
Yes.
But wait, you said before, thank you. You said before people pass. You know something I don't know?
Yeah, no, you just... Well, listen though.
Kimberly, I'm like, what is...
Listen, but life is precious though. Let's be honest, and we black. Let's just keep it real. We black, and the diets we got ain't helping.
Y'all pray for me that ain't gonna happen.
Last shout out though, because a lot of hands went up. If you are from the state of New Jersey, I just want you to stand up, please. Yeah. If you're from the state of New Jersey, I just want you to stand up, please. Institute board staff and our friends, welcome to the mighty, mighty Selma, Alabama. Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Marty, please, go right here.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Oh, is that on? Let me see. Is this one work?
They turn it on individually.
Hi, y'all. Hi. Welcome to Selma. Welcome to Alabama. We're glad you're here. I want to talk a little bit about what democracy means for the Deep South. We think of democracy as being something we do every 2 to 4 years in November.
Come on.
That's real.
But really, democracy is about having government that is accountable to us.
Well.
Government that is for us, by us, with us. The cuts, the chaos of the last 6 weeks are not just about creating a mess in Washington and distracting all of us. And I see you, friend, I know. There are more than 40,000 federal employees in Alabama.
Come on.
Georgia and Florida have the 4th and 5th largest number of federal employees in the country. This is about jobs.
Simple.
1 in 3 people who work for the federal government is a person of color.
Come on.
Now, that's not enough. But who do you think they're laying off?
Speak.
So this is not just about passing laws or protecting the vote. It is about those. And that's why we're here this weekend. But it is also about erasing the way that government looks at us, takes care of us as part of its function and service. And the attacks that are underway are going to make it so much harder, especially for the people who are struggling the most. The cuts to federal housing programs. In Alabama,
Yes.
that's devastating.
Devastating.
The cuts to health care. We've already seen hospitals across the state of Alabama cutting and closing. 44 states in Alabama offer no gynecological care whatsoever for women. It's going to get worse. This is how we make democracy relevant. This is not about the politicians and the elected officials and who's got the best social media post about the democracy that we're marching for this weekend. This is about protecting our communities
Yes.
and making sure that government works for us, not against us.
Amen.
So we're here to invite all of you to take this personally. This is not about just our friends and family who've been affected by the chaos and the cuts. It's not just about the honorable employees who have lost their jobs. This is about all of us because we all know people who have lost their jobs.
Amen.
We all know people who will lose their housing or their health care. This is about making sure that our voices are raised in defense of the rights, the civil rights that we have been fighting for 60 years and longer. So we're glad you're here because we need you in this struggle.
Amen.
And we look forward to talking more with all of you this weekend.
I want to thank you, Brother Mark, for kicking us off. And I want to take a quick personal privilege and thank someone who we all love but doesn't really get the thanks due, and that is my brother, Ryan Haygood.
Started off right.
And Ryan, I thank you for your consistency as a human being and as a man, as a leader, as a friend. You've been here for Selma for 20 years. You've been there for me for as long as I can remember in our careers. You were there for me when my dad was on his deathbed and when I took this job on and this amazing challenge. You've always been there. And Lord willing, you'll always be for the rest of my life. So thank you, brother. I love you.
Come on. I love it. Let's do it.
We are in a time that feels so familiar. It's a time of national crisis. And some people are starting to wake up. We're in a time of bloody Sundays. We're in a time of standoffs in the schoolhouse door. We're in a time of people fearing for their physical safety for them and their families. We're in a time of rising, not just white supremacist ideology, but racialized violence. We're in a time of obstruction of justice and defiance of the very basic rule of law, let alone a racial justice vision for what the law could do for people. We're in a time of crisis, but that's when we do our best work. Not just as lawyers and organizations, national, local, but as a people. That's when we find our stride, our purpose. And so we're also in a time of redefinition. We talk about the state of democracy, but when people hear the word democracy, they mean different things. Margaret gave you some tangibles about what it means. And I'm going to add to that and talk about some concepts. At the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, we talk about a formula for what democracy is for our people. It is voice, so that we are meaningfully heard through the ballot box and otherwise, through protest and dissent. which is critical and vital to this country, and is frankly part of the Black American tradition. Always has been, from the North Star to the height of the Civil Rights Movement to today. It is opportunity. Give us a chance, and we will show you exactly who we are and exactly what we can do. Yet we find ourselves simultaneously locked out of opportunity, but also locked in to concentrated poverty, to schools where the teachers are well-intentioned, but average experience is less than the next school. Locked out of resources, locked out of a way to get your foot in the door to a college, university, to a workplace. But it's also about a third thing, the word that people don't like to talk about, power.
Come on now.
Power. Power can mean not power over somebody else. See, that's the other way.
Yeah.
That's the way you see in D.C. But we talk about power as a people, power of pride and culture and community, power of bodily autonomy, whether you're a woman or not, power of self-determination, power to determine what safety looks like on your own terms. I want me and my people to be safe from state violence by the police and vigilante violence by white supremacists on our own terms. Voice, opportunity, power. Think about these concepts. We have to redefine what democracy looks like, and it leads to the next thing. You know about Reconstruction, the first Reconstruction after the Civil War. You know about the second Reconstruction.
Come on.
Civil rights movement, which led to civil rights legislation, like the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voter Rights Act of 65, all of which are under attack, and so much more. But think about what Reconstruction is. Reconstruction, both of those Reconstructions, were fundamental realignments of the legal, political, and social relationships between Americans and the state, the government, but also between and amongst Americans ourselves. A fundamental realignment. When you're in a moment of national crisis, like the Civil War, like the height of the Civil Rights Movement in the 50s, 60s, when you're in a moment of national crisis, it's time for redefinition, but also time for Reconstruction. So what is our third Reconstruction going to look like?
Well,
what are the terms of engagement?
come on.
What is the vision for the future? That's what we need to be talking about right now. So even as we fight back against the things that are happening right now, and we have to, and we'll talk about lawsuits and all the things we're all involved in, but we also have to fight forward, because it is the vision of community, it's the vision of people of concern like us who are actually going to make that third Reconstruction possible.
Okay now.
They put me after a lawyer, which is never good, especially when it's my friend. Virginia K. Solomon, I am the president of Common Cause. When we talk about where we are with democracy and the state of democracy, I think one of the things that we have to be reminded of is that, especially with this idea that next year we're supposed to be celebrating our 250th anniversary as a country, we were not founded as a democracy. Don't believe the lies. We did not become a democracy until 60 years ago when the Voting Rights Act passed. If you talk to international organizations, they did not recognize the United States as a democracy until 65, and so we are a relatively young democracy. Until people had the right to vote, we were not a democracy. And the people who oppose us are the same ones who are trying to bring us back to the time before the Voting Rights Act. But I think one of the things as we think about who is, because we always talk about they, who are the they, who are the them. It's not just Donald Trump, he is a symptom of a larger problem. This has been a plan by many on the far right for a very long time. This is the convergence of white Christian nationalists who want to bastardize religion and corrupt billionaires who want to buy our country.
Yeah.
So my thing every single time when you ask what's happening right now, follow the money.
Come on.
Look at who is in this administration. This is the richest cabinet in U.S. history. And now we have Elon Musk, a billionaire who came from South Africa, whose family benefited from apartheid, and that is how he became the richest man in the world, coming and trying to not only buy our elections at the national level, but now he said, well, I'm going to dip and dab into, I don't know, a Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, putting $1 million in there. He wants to own every single one of our legislative bodies. And so as we think about what we can do when we talk about where we are in the state of democracy, the only thing that gives me hope, and my job, our organization, our tagline is we hold power accountable, is that sometimes we feel powerless because it's like, what can I do? It feels really big when it's just us as individuals. But that collective us sitting here today, every people in our organizations, the people we talk to on our streets, our friends, our neighbors, that is the we that will win this fight. But the question that we have to have is not what is the state of democracy. It is what do we want the state of democracy to be when this moment passes? Because it will pass. And it's going to be one of two things. It is going to be a Christian white nationalist state that is owned by billionaires, or it is going to be a new democracy that is built by us. And that is the question that we have to answer today.
Just by way of information, in terms of democracy, breaking news, the Department of Health and Human Services has granted access to Musk and Doge, access to the sensitive child support database with troves of income data. And this income data is linked to nearly all U.S. workers. So they're in that. Also, Trump orders denial of student loan relief for nonprofit workers engaged in improper activity. So, and that affects a lot of us here.
Yeah.
April,
Amen.
Besides what I just shared, what you all are close on the ground here, what are people's thoughts? What are they saying in terms of their fears or their apathy?
Yeah.
And what do we do about it?
So, people have we've level set a lot. Like, there have been a lot of things that have been said, not just on this stage, but by others who have joined us. And that question almost feels so narrow, right? Because I think that, what we've got to start doing is having conversations about all these things. And I know many of you might be asking, why we keep talking about religion, at a moment when we're talking about democracy and political things. It's because religion is a part, right? It's one of the pillars of democracies. Your ability to express your religion and your belief is something that democracy should have. But in some places, that's not the case. Those who have a certain faith and belief have to do so in their closets, in their homes, for fear of real persecution. And so when you have folks up here, including Pastor Brown, when you hear us talking about Christian nationalism, there's a reason for that. Because it is absolutely a threat to a freedom that you all celebrate. It doesn't have to be Christianity, although I will say that the belief that many had on that bridge, right, starting at his church, was a Christian faith. So when he was talking about Luke 4:18, which I became exposed to, and that baptized me when I was living here, and why it allowed those who were at the church to walk over here to this bridge, was because Jesus said that the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and I'm going to finish the whole phrase because it's important. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to give good news to the poor, to lift up the brokenhearted, to release the captives, right? And to give and express that this is the year of the Lord's favor. And so that scripture not only motivated that pastor, but motivated those folks to leave that church, come over here, and it created an environment where we all can celebrate the right to vote. So that is the power of faith. And so it is not unwelcomed in these spaces. It just means that Christianity isn't the only, because we all need to be, whatever faith that you are a part of, the goodness of those faiths, the parts of those faiths that tell us that we have to be here for each other, that we have to fight with each other, and that we have to look death in the face and say, not today, right, is what has allowed for our movement to not only start, but to be sustained. So we've got to let faith come in the room and not be afraid that our faiths are different. We have to say yes to all of them so that we can be inspired in this very scary moment. So we can cleave our purses. And this is even for those who may not have a particular faith. They just may have faith in us and each other, right? All of it belongs in this moment if we're going to survive. And not just survive, but thrive. So what I'm hearing on the ground, right, is that while I'm concerned, and many folks, 92% of us, I was a part of that, voted in a way that we believe would help to sustain this moment. But what we are all coming to grips with is, do you want to be comfortable or do you want to be well? And we have to be honest that in many respects, what we've been fighting for and maintaining has given us a level of comfort. And so we're being asked in this moment, do you want to be whole or do you want to be comfortable? Because being whole may mean that we might be a little bit uncomfortable. Not in the way that they keep telling people we need to be a little uncomfortable as we unravel this system, but uncomfortable in a way because we really need to be transformed in this nation. We have to accept that the new level set is that we're not going back. Who wants to go back to that? Who wants to go back that you need a Voting Rights Act even though you got a 15th Amendment? Is the Constitution real or not? And I have fought alongside many of my comrades in here to keep that Voting Rights Act in place. But let's be honest. Why do we need a Voting Rights Act? Why do we need a Civil Rights Act if we got the 14th Amendment that demands that we all be treated equal? It's a lie. And you don't get rights from somebody's interpretation of the right. Right? You have a right because it's a right. It's a fundamental right that cannot be undone because you got a new Supreme Court justice. That each cycle we're cleaving to, oh my God, who's going to be the president and who's going to select the next justice? That's fragile, it's vulnerable, and it makes us vulnerable. So we can't continue to go back. So this fight on the ground is not about going back to what was. It's about pressing forward to what we need and what's new. So that is what these discussions are about. And I'm so thankful that my comrades up here, who we fight together all the time, arrested and everything, are also saying the same thing. This is about what do we want this country to be. So I'm gonna stop and say, do you want to be comfortable? I really want you to sit with that. The Hebrew Israelites, some scholars, well, the Exodus says, because I'm going to bring faith in this room, were oppressed for 430 years. But they themselves find themselves in a quandary. Do you want to be comfortable or do you want to be well and whole? They had to answer that question, and we have to answer that question right now in this moment. Because wholeness and well are going to have us do some radical things. It's going to have us change the way we think about each other, the way we see and value our institution, the way we spend our money, the way we gather our money, the way that we see our health, and how we support each other in all being well. We're going to have to we're going to have to remove this unholy tethering that we had to the origins of this country, because it's fooled us and made us think that we're comfortable and okay because we can go to Starbucks and we have homes and we got these jobs, right? And life looks so peaceful, but the plantation looked real peaceful. If you rode by the plantation, it was quiet. Massa and his mistress is on the front drinking Kool-Aid and lemonade. But believe me, there was nothing peaceful about that environment. And so here we are in a very similar space. So we got to be different. And it's that moment that we are in. And I believe that we are up for this moment.
Long break.
We are ready.
We are ready. Thank you, April. Margaret Wong, have we been too focused on the ballot box and just getting out the vote versus being focused and educating and organizing around the larger issues of democracy? What do you think? And how has SPLC been handling this?
Thanks, Mark. So what I want to remind everyone here is so critical in this fight, and it's the reason why we're all here in Selma today, is that we in the South understand what's happening more than anybody else in this country. This is not new for those of us in the South. We've been fighting this for centuries. The bad things that are now being adopted nationally and by the federal government, so many times they get their origins here. Y'all remember the Shelby Act? Alabama. Y'all remember the Dobbs decision? Mississippi. The latest case on protecting the unhoused came from Oregon, but only because we had been suing and defeating the state of Alabama every time they tried to criminalize the unhoused here. These ideas come from the Deep South, from white supremacy, from the origins of slavery and Jim Crow and segregation. So as we're looking today to how do we fight back, especially for those of you who've taken the time to travel and come here, I encourage you to listen to your fellow activists from Alabama. They have fought this fight for their entire lives. They know what it's like to be up against impossible odds. They know what it's like to have all the actors, government, corporate, political leaders against them. And this is a moment when we can lift up their leadership, their courage, their vision for a different world. That's why we're here. Southern Poverty Law Center has made a significant shift over the last 5 years to investing in building relationships in community. We've been doing the legal work for 50 years, but the community work we've been doing for the last few. And why are we doing that? It started before this administration. Because we know that litigation without community doesn't do any good. We know that fighting policy efforts without hearing from community whether this makes a real difference for them doesn't do any good. We're trying to take our lessons now by listening to community. And across the Deep South, there are so many ideas. Here in Selma, there are so many ideas for how to improve lives in our community and improve democracy for our country. And I hope that all of us will spend more time listening to community, not only this weekend, but as we move forward, because there's so much vision and leadership here that we will all benefit from. Amen. Thanks.
Okay, Margaret, thank you. Brother Damon, talk to us about the Lawyers Committee and some of the larger democracy work that we should be doing and the larger democracy work that the Lawyers Committee is doing.
Sometimes you got to pop out and show racists. And so there's the things we have to do. There's the things that if we don't do, we're not going to have a future. And we have to do a bit of both.
Come on.
Right? So the title of today's session is about, well, number one, under the bridge, the theme, but also democracy beyond the ballot box. We've heard these notions of what democracy is, what it must be. In terms of real moment, here's some things that we're doing in conjunction with other organizations. And I'm going to talk about litigation and other advocacy as well, real quick. So on the litigation side, there's this question, Kim Crenshaw, can you use the master's tools to dismantle his own house?
Can you?
Can you?
Can you?
We're going to keep trying that to some extent, right? And so here's one way we're trying it. The president of this United States of America, the current president, said, what did he say the other day? The First Amendment is back. As long as you don't talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and critical race theory, right? So inspired by a lot of work that Professor Crenshaw has led on her Freedom to Learn campaign, we're involved in 2 lawsuits in Oklahoma and Arkansas, states that, among others, whether they're banning books here, they're banning curriculum. In Arkansas, they actually have a bill on the books that says you can't teach about these concepts, and they specifically mention critical race theory. Specifically mention it. Now, the question in these cases is, we brought theories under the 14th Amendment, equal protection, but also the First Amendment. And so what we're testing is, you say y'all are about the First Amendment, then the First Amendment has to work for us too. It can't just be selective. It can't just be when the KKK wants to march through the streets that they have a right to free speech. Doesn't that mean we have educators have the freedom to teach and that students have the freedom to learn? And believe you me, we're testing the theory, and guess what? We have Trump-appointed judges in both cases, but they have both granted preliminary injunctions in favor of black teachers and black students in both of those cases. But the question's not answered, can you use those tools, because those cases are on appeal, so we're about to find out. We're about to find out, but the fight is worth it. Black students, but we got a white girl too, a white student too.
Okay, come on.
Who articulately said, this is about my ability to learn about black history, which is American history too, right? In one of our cases, right? So I also want to talk about a case we filed recently on behalf of a group called Chicago Women in Trades. I don't know if you heard of this group, but they actually work nationwide, helping primarily 70% of their clientele is black and Latino women to get into the trades, the kind of trades where you think about the white guy plumber with you see the crack of his, you know what? And he's in the union and you can't get into that. But actually, there's a lot of people who are doing this work, whether they're in those unions or not. And there's a lot of women who are trying to do this work. That's exactly what Chicago Women in Trades does. But guess what? The Trump administration said, well, you can't do illegal DEI. So we're going to threaten to terminate your federal grant from the Department of Labor. So we have sued on their behalf alongside Latino Justice, alongside National Women's Law Center, and a partnership and strategic partnership with a lot of other organizations. You see, there's about 5 different cases filed against these anti-diversity orders. And pay attention, these cases are being filed on behalf of different communities, different types of organizations impacted, challenging the actions of different federal agencies, labor, DOJ, HHS, and in different federal courts. And already one of them has a nationwide injunction. We are creating a blanket around the country on different issues to address this stuff. Another case I want to talk about that's one of my favorite pop-outs in recent memory is this. So we partner a lot with Southern Poverty Law Center, who does amazing research and has intelligence, literally and figuratively, on white supremacist activity. Through those partnerships, it's helped us to find opportunities to sue white supremacists. We've sued Patriot Front multiple times. We've sued the so-called Proud Boys. And in one of the bigger cases, we're suing Trump, the Proud Boys, and the Oath Keepers all in one for their role in the January 6th insurrection, which we allege is a CO conspiracy, a conspiracy to violate civil rights. But here's the one case I'm going to mention and close with. We represented the historic Metropolitan AME Church in D.C., which is just a few blocks from our office, which itself is just around the corner from what I guess used to be known as Black Lives Matter Plaza, because they have Well, I walked by yesterday, but we're going to have to talk about that one because I'm mad with the mayor on that one for capitulating. But at any rate, so we represent the Metropolitan Amy because the Proud Boys had a so-called rally, and they even videotaped themselves defacing, vandalizing the church, specifically that Black Lives Matter banner outside the church. So we sued, and it was an easy, frankly, slam dunk, but they don't want to pay up. They don't even want to show up for court. So I want to give all credit to Pastor William Lamar IV, who leads that church, the historic church, because between him and legal strategy with our lawyers and lawyers at a couple other organizations and the law firm Paul Weiss, we said, you don't want to pay up? Let me get that out you. We got an order, a court order, taking away the trademark and the logo of the Proud Boys. The church now owns that. They cannot profit off of their racism anymore. Let me get that out you. And sometimes you got to pop out in that way too.
Thank you, Damon. Thank you. Virginia, tell us about your experience with placing an ad in the Washington Post and what that was like in terms of speaking out for a healthy democracy and the efforts to suppress that.
Yeah, so Common Cause and our friends at Southern Poverty Law Center, we've been paying attention to the corruption that is coming out of this White House, and the fact that an unelected billionaire, white supremacist, is in there in our government making decisions, just slashing programs, has no idea what's going on. He has so much control and power, and all the questions that we're asking. Turned it back. Okay, it's turned it back up. What we want to know is who's actually running our government. We want to know who is actually making these decisions. So we began on February 17th. We launched a campaign called Fire Elon Musk. Yes. Donald Trump likes to fire folks. Okay, you got your prime first person there because this man should have no decision making over our lives. So we go to place an ad in the Washington Post. Fire Elon Musk. There's a special Washington edition that there's this wrap that you can put outside. It lands on the desk of the president. It goes to the White House, the Pentagon, and Capitol Hill. So we're all set. We're good to go. And then we hear the Friday before it's supposed to run on that weekend, we can't run your ad. Now, mind you, they have been doing these types of ads with beautiful pictures of Donald Trump, airbrushed, smiling, thumbs up, thank you, Mr. President. But as soon as it's something that is pushing back against him, they say no. We also know that Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, who also owns Amazon, Jeff Bezos has been acquiescing to the president. He's been going along to get along. He refused to do an endorsement for Kamala Harris. One of the cartoonists there at the Washington Post had to leave because there was a cartoon that was not favorable to him. It showed all of the people, the billionaires who were kind of groveling at Donald Trump's feet. They wouldn't allow it to be run. Then our ad, they said, but you can do something on the inside. We said, thanks, but no thanks. We won't. Well, it was a pretty expensive ad. Because we're not rich like that, my organization. But so we partnered. It was about $115,000. Huge thing. But we want to troll this president as much as possible. So we decided, well, we're not going to put our money there. We ended up getting, because of so many media outlets, this Fire Elon Musk campaign, we ended up getting about $17 million worth of free advertisement because all of the other folks picked it up. But we're not done. See, a lot of people were saying, were you guys afraid? Hell no. I'm not afraid of Elon Musk. I grew up in the projects. My family is from Puerto Rico. I had to grow up fighting half the time. I am not afraid of a bully. None of us should be afraid of a bully just because he has money, because he's still a garbage human being. And so I said that. But I think in addition to that, we're ramping up our campaign. So just this week, we took out a billboard in Times Square that says, "Fire Elon Musk." And every week between now and the end of June, there will be a different message to the White House that can go out in the media. And every person from those white Christian nationalists who come with their red hats to Times Square will see something. But we're taking it beyond that. Because the thing is, it's not just about Elon Musk. It is about Jeff Bezos now changing. You can't do opinions unless they are aligned with his point of view. So the thing that we're thinking about is, if democracy requires us to have freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and the press is hidden behind paywalls, number one, because you can't read half the articles nowadays. They're hidden behind paywalls. Our press is owned by billionaires. And the social media that we consume is also controlled by billionaires. If you think for 1 second that the reason that Donald Trump didn't got the amount of votes that he got was not due to Elon Musk manipulating the algorithms on X, Meta allowing hate speech on Facebook and Instagram, we are coming for them, because you are either going to have journalistic integrity or you will have no paper. After what we did, thousands of people canceled their subscriptions to the Washington Post. And our message to them is, you think you have power, but you don't have people power. Money only buys you so much. It only buys you so much. So when we're thinking about what we need to have in this moment, just the question that I was asked about, are you nervous? Of course I'm nervous. We all know. There are some cruddy people out there. But it doesn't mean that we have to be afraid. Alexis Johnson McGill, who runs Planned Parenthood, said, it's okay to be weary, but we can't be wary. We can't be afraid of our own power. And in this moment, I think one of the things, if nothing else, that we take, I would ask everybody in this room, find your political home, whether that is in your church, whether that is your local community, whether that is the Urban League or the National Coalition for Black Civic Participation, Common Cause, SPLC, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, Black Voters Matter, you name it. There are organizations right now who are ready to receive you, and not only receive you, but give you a voice. Because at the end of the day, it is your voices that matter. I'm honored to be on this panel with my friends. But I have had more out of this experience at Selma the past few years when I have come out of listening to the people from Selma, out of listening to people from Chicago, from Mississippi, from Louisiana, from Florida, Georgia, wherever you come from. And so right now, the thing that I will say, in addition to holding power accountable, is we need to not only build our own power, but show up for one another in community. And I invite all of you to be in community with us.
That's right, let's go.
Did you say you know how to fight? We were just looking at
Look, hey,
because
you
I
know,
didn't know that. Me and Ryan didn't know that. So we need to talk to you about that. We might need to go get some.
I can
we
handle
need to
myself
go get some people.
in a
So
dark alley. Ask
you
my
can do that with us?
husband.
Okay. Hey, Paulos, we got to go get some folk. We know what to do. Amen. Ryan, you all, as always, the New Jersey Institute for Social, and the board chair said something I wanted to say after I forgot. Remember when she said that some folk are saying that they're tired, don't want to do nothing no more. They tired of marching, and we don't need to march. So there were a couple of people who put that out there. I just learned that when a couple of people put that out there, Musk and Zuckerberg amplified it even more to create, and people have the right to feel the way they have to feel, but if you remember, it ballooned across social media. Nobody wanted to do anything. We tired of trying to save democracy. That was not an organic viral moment. It was deliberately promoted by those no good people. Ryan, you have been organizing, and New Jersey Institute for Social Justice has been organizing from the ground up. Is that working? Is that the best approach? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, love the question. Love the conversation. I say a couple of things really quickly. The Selma moment, right, that we're in, if it taught us nothing else, it taught us that from the ground up is really the only way.
That's right.
Particularly now. And when you think about what they were marching for, they were certainly marching for access to democracy, but They wanted access to the power that democracy brings. And the question is, power to do what? And in my mind, April Albright, the answer was to win. Yeah. And I just want to say a quick word, Mark Thompson, about winning. Because I think particularly for black people, we too often allow our experience to be boiled down to a harm reduction strategy. Yeah. How do we reduce the amount of police brutality? How do we close racial wealth gaps? How do we get greater access to opportunities? And rarely, if we get honest, do we ever have a vision for what it looks like to win? Yeah. Not you all, but far less thoughtful folks. If I pose a question to the audience, what would it look like, thoughtful people, for black folks to win? Folks, not you all, but others would struggle. And the Bloody Sunday March was precisely about that. Us winning. And I had to fact check it. I had to ask Cliff Albright, that's the way he came up. What's fascinating about that day, 60 years ago, 600 nonviolent, peaceful protesters dramatized to their world the right to have access to a democracy and ultimately to win, is that there were no elected officials with them.
Come on.
And too often, I think, we over-rely on politicians. We over-rely. And I asked her permission, because I keep looking at her. So I'm going to share this quick story, and then I'm going to say a word about Mark, then I'm going to answer the question. This is quick. Tara Murray right here used to work in the White House. And part of her charge was to bring these kinds of conversations into the White House. She's not there. She works with Mark at the Urban League. And Tara single-handedly organized, there were like 12 of them at least last year. The former White House, that's important. The Biden White House. This is very, very important. The Biden White House. Tara, I look at your face. I'm going to go there, but I'm not going to attribute it to you, this part of it. These were equity convenings in the White House to talk about these issues. One of those equity convenings, really quickly, it started in the morning in the White House. The person who opened us up was some cabinet person, encouraged us to look out the window. She said, there's the West Wing. The West Wing was constructed by enslaved Africans. Mm-hmm. Next speaker in this equity convening said, and by the way, those systems of slavery, they live with us today. They infected today's systems. And to April, I'm like, oh gosh, we're about to go all the way there in the White House. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, so we talked about how slavery was used to create this building, this White House, how those systems constructed then influence the very systems that we live with today. So then I thought we were going to go there, April. So I was waiting. So what then do you do with slavery that happened there, Sherry Ann Butterfield, and persists to this very day? What do you do with that? Well, is that a mentoring program? No disrespect to mentor. I had to mentor Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Is that, do we need to close the racial wealth gap? What is that? And so Tara, I just raised my hand because I was just curious. Given the context of this conversation and this moment we're in, if you take the racial wealth gap, that nationally it would take black families 240 years to catch up to the wealth that white folks have today. 240 years. Folks are living a long time, but Dorian Murray Thomas, anybody going that long? Right. Is it appropriate to have a conversation about what, brace yourself, somebody said it, what reparations might look like? Well. But hold up, no. Y'all clapping. This is a different environment. No. No clap. Literally, the person that was leading the session, I looked at her, she looked at me. I looked at her, she looked at me. One more time, her, me. Literally, head fell down. And she said to me, you know, we're not talking about that here. So just hold that in your mind. A few months later, we were here in Selma. President Biden came. And Mark, as I shared, he was leading the march. Somehow, because of Tara, I'm just keeping it real, me and Damon were up there in the front, just keeping it real. That's how we got there. It was Tara. We did not elbow anybody, by the way, because Tara got us there. And it was an unbelievable moment. We get to the top of the bridge right there. And Mark stops to offer the prayer that John Lewis offered earlier, who he had passed by now. So Mark offers a prayer that includes, among other things, a prayer for reparations. President Biden he's praying over President Biden that he would have the courage to just say the word, to just explore what might it look like to think about, to study reparations for black people. And it was a prayer. I believe the Lord heard it, Mark Thompson. I believe Biden wanted to hear it. But what we heard back from them was, this just isn't the right time. Because the way politics work, Ryan, that word is a lightning rod. And like we're talking about re-election. After all, that's why we're having these equity convenings. Because in these rooms, we tell you, black people, we care about your issues, just hold on and wait a little while. And if we get honest, what we were hoping for, some of us, including 82% of black men who voted slow down assaulting us for the results of this election, is that we were told when Kamala Harris wins, then when President Obama was in office, we were told when he gets his second term. And I just want to submit to you all that we can't rely on these elected officials.
Cannot.
Mobb Deep. Damon brought in Kendrick. Mobb Deep in the 1990s had a classic song. It was called Shook Ones. In different context. Amber, Randolph, but it essentially was ain't no such thing. You're scared to. You shook. And it concludes you cannot be a shook one.
Cannot.
And so I bring this here because what I think we learned from Selma, this is our Selma moment.
It is. Amen.
It really, really is. And it has very little to do with shook one politicians. Even the most progressive sounding politicians will always be keepers of the status quo if you let them. And so what I think the powerful moment is that we have an opportunity in our communities to build the win we want to see. If it's in voting, as my colleagues McCowery and Assad have done, we looked at how you can actually, in our state, you can lower the voting age for school board elections. Talk about expanding rights, bringing new voters into the political process when nationally their rights are under attack. We can think about new voting rights acts in individual states, but more than that, on the topic of winning, I want us to think about how we go back to our respective communities and begin to have conversations about winning in the context of reparations. It's not going to involve politicians, and it can't, because why would you bring in a season of thinking about winning with some folks who are going to tell you what's not possible. So I'm going to close here to make this point. I got this dope t-shirt on.
That's right, we ready.
I'm going to bring you into it. 3 words, 3 periods, all caps. It came from the mind of Lori Beecham and my colleague Rupa Matwani. At the end of the last year, folks were shook. They weren't listening to Mobb Deep. There was just shookness, fear. Folks are just looking for places to hide. They were like, why are we hiding? Stop hiding. So we said, you know what, we're ready. We are ready. So that was 2 people came up with the idea. And then we had 1 person, my man Jake Gerard. I'm not going to show him to you because you're going to want to use him. He's not available. Jake Gerard designed the t-shirts. And those things have been going like hotcakes. It's almost like they were made by Black Voters Matter. But they weren't. We made them. 3 people. So I'm going to close the market, but so I want us, we're going to do some things. They were standing on the bridge. We real comfortable, though it's hot. And some of y'all ate. So I'm going to lead us. It's not what I do, April. Come on. I'm going to lead us, Mark. So this third here, you all are the we's. You're the we's. You right here, you all, you're the R's.
Okay.
You know where we're going, April.
I do.
And you all, including John Schreiber from NJ Pack, that's New Jersey, by the way, are the readies.
Yeah.
So if you're able, I'm going to just ask you to stand with me right now, please. I know it's hot. But it was hot then too, to stand here. Remember your assignments. No shook ones, Kim Crenshaw. We's over here, this third. I see you, Cartine, thirds. R's. Ready. And just as a heads up, we're going to go back, too.
Come on.
This is going to be ready, we are.
All right.
We are ready. Ready, we are. And because this ain't my jam,
Are we?
April Albright's going to lead us.
Yes.
And the thing
I'm
is,
ready.
we got to believe it's true.
I'm ready.
You can't leave here shook ones. Even if you're shook, just push it on down.
Right.
Okay, Martin? He's not. A Division I athlete, Notre Dame right there. Here we go. April Albright on the
Okay.
We Are Ready. Yes, please.
Do I start us out?
Oh, yeah, you do.
But I like to be with the ready. We had already been.
So you can double down on
Yeah,
the ready.
okay. All right. All right. Y'all ready?
Yes.
Y'all ready? We
are.
Wait. Because I didn't really hear the we.
Feel it, shook
We
ones.
didn't feel. We
Are.
Okay, I'm gonna split it. I'm gonna go back. Oh, y'all messing it up. Okay. So it's we are ready. Ready are we? Now it may seem a little off. It's okay, right? But you important. You a bridge here. We're gonna start over.
Are.
All right.
Are.
Folks, we're going to do a brief Q&A. We got time for that? No, we don't have time? Okay, I don't think we have time. Yeah, I got you. Okay. So we won't have time for Q&A. So let me do this. Hold on, everybody. Have a seat. We're almost done. I didn't know Ryan was going to tell that story. There's a little more to that story. Sheila Jackson Lee, God rest her soul, when Biden had come into office, she was going to have a private meeting with him, Tara, and she called me and said, Mark, we got to tell him to get ready for H.R. 40. We had enough votes to pass, and we didn't get it passed because everybody was scared of the midterms. Shook. So she says, what should I say? First I said, can I go? She said, no. But she said, I want you to tell me what to say. And I said, say to him that this is he wants to be remembered as a great president, Tara. Do the unfinished business of Lincoln, of Abraham Lincoln. He wants to be a transformative president. Finish the unfinished business of Lincoln. So she goes to him and then calls me after the meeting. She didn't let me go, but she said she not only told him that, but told him I said it. And he replied to her, don't y'all do that to me. That's too much pressure. I can't be Lincoln. Right? And it was a little tongue-in-cheek, so it was cool. So when I prayed the prayer, when the prayer finished, he was leaving. He left right after the prayer, went to the car, and he walked right past me. And all I said was, we good? He winked, he said, we good. And I know you the one that said Lincoln. And then got on in the car. So he was aware of what was going on, and it's a shame. And it was really on the part of Congress to have gotten that vote in, and they just didn't. Want to just acknowledge another great organization here before we have our closing remarks. The Workers' Circle is here. Hold your hands up. They've been around since 1900, working with the Civil Rights Movement. They're having an event at 3 o'clock over at the Dallas County Courthouse, where we see the videos and eyes on the prize of Reverend Vivian being beaten, trying to register to vote. Also here with us, who's joined us, we want to acknowledge her, the president of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, Dr. Melanie Campbell, my dear friend. Good to see Melanie. This has been a great panel, has it not? Here to give us our closing remarks. Can you share that mic with him if you don't mind? Again, one of our legacy civil rights organizations doing great work. And I just want to commend my brother. We've been on the battlefield together for a long time. And he's probably watched me grow up. We both have, also we're kind of cool because we both have the same two light-skinned dudes with the same name. But there is no one who is more learned and more erudite when it comes to the economics of our situation and how economics should be applied to our struggle, how we have to see to it that dollars get into local communities. Very few people can articulate that the way that he does. She talked about Bezos, Virginia did. I'm gonna tell y'all something, you know, and nobody's here to endorse a boycott. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I just want y'all to think about it. We have to be thoughtful in what we do and how we organize. Ain't no point in boycotting one place if we're going to shift all our money to another place that blocks her ad in the Washington Post. I think I just said something. So we just got to be real thoughtful and read Dr. King, who did it. Some of us, because we got an Instagram account, think we know more than Dr. King. He taught us. No, some folk got mad at me. I'm going to call. We're going to do this boycott. I said, well, have y'all ever studied Dr. King or led a national boycott? I know how to do it. I said, well, actually, Dr. King said, letter from Birmingham jail, boycott step 4. Not step 1, the other steps that lead to that. Oh, well, you think you know everything because you getting your doctorate. I said, no, letter from Birmingham jail is actually on Google. I didn't learn that in school. I learned that by just taking the time to read what he said. So we can't get to the point where this was successful. Are we studying this? Or we just running out here because social media platforms that we don't create have created us, it boosted our egos so much we think we know more than we think we know. The egos we have from our social media accounts that we don't own weren't even created by us. That's something that's been engineered to make us think we something else. Now I know more than Dr. King and I know more about a boycott. So, you know, we need to remind each other of that and humble ourselves and learn from our ancestors who gave their lives in this way. It's been done before. If we do it this way again, we'll win again and be prepared for it. So here to offer some closing remarks, our dear, dear brother, the National Urban League, also former mayor of New Orleans. When I travel, not only do I say we have the same name, I said, you know, I know a former mayor. When I go in other cities and meet mayors, well, I know Mark Morial. Sometimes that gets me indoors I never would have got into.
Thank you, my brother.
My brother, Mark Morial.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it. I'm going to be extremely brief, but I first want to thank my friend, brother, and homeboy, Damon Hewitt, who's from New Orleans. I'm so proud of this brother for how he has taken the helm of the Lawyers Committee and has really become a difference maker. Also, my friend and brother, Ryan Haygood, also for his great leadership. Give him a big round of applause. It is hard for me to add to this great panel. But let me offer this perspective on these times. What I believe we are witnessing is an effort to repeal the last 70 years. 70 years ago, the Brown versus the Board of Education decision in Topeka, Kansas, 1 year before the Montgomery bus boycott, set into motion a series of events, a series of steps forward, some in the courts, some in the streets, some compelled by legislation. The 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 65 Voting Rights Act, the 1966 War on Poverty, which gave you HUD, the Department of Education, Medicaid, Medicare, Job Corps, the 1968 Fair Housing Act, and everything in between. I went back and looked at the poverty rates, 1963, and then looked at the poverty rates 15 years later, and there was dramatic change. In 1965, every single company in America, top 500, was run by a white man. Every university, predominantly white institution of higher education, run by white men. Every hospital, every trade association, every museum. And I could go on and on and on. Don't get me wrong. The last 70 years have not brought us where we should be. But the last 70 years made significant progress in this country, and we have been the beneficiaries. I don't think there's one person in here who was a person of age when they crossed that bridge in 1965. None of us here can say we marched or we were arrested in all likelihood. We've been the beneficiaries. Now what falls to us is to ensure that our children and children's children are not going to litigate the battles of our grandparents. This is bigger than a presidency, a single or singular issue. It's a generational challenge. 1900, 1890, 89, 90, 91 in our beloved hometown, the Citizens Committee that included Louis Martinet, the lawyer, set up the Plessy situation as a test case to test the separate car ordinance law of the state of Louisiana. If you go back and look at the documents and the discussions, they never thought they'd lose. They looked at equal protection of the laws. How can that be interpreted in any way, shape, or form to sustain separate seating of separate facilities? But they lost. And the next, from 1896 to 1954, many of our organizations, the legacy civil rights organizations, were founded in that breach. In the early 1900s, the fight and the battle was to just restore where we had been in the Reconstruction period. So now it falls to us. And there's only one question for this generation. It isn't about whether we have the wherewithal, the intelligence, the strategy. The only thing online is whether we have the courage and the fight to do the fight in an intelligent way, to do it in a sustained way. I got a lot of folks say, what are we going to do? And they almost are looking for a one-punch knockout. Isn't there one lawsuit? Isn't there one political move? This is a long trench warfare. War has been declared on the last 70 years. It's been declared on the modest progress that we have made. And it's so pernicious that they're trying to knock out our ability of our organizations, the ability of those institutions within the government, like the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the CFPB, those institutions within the government that were created to enhance and protect and promote this progress are being systemically and unlawfully disabled. So this is a fight, and this is a strategy being undertaken in this war where there was a transparent battle plan called 2025. And people said, well, they don't really mean it. And even 47 said, I never heard of it. Again. So all I say is, in this moment where we're here to commemorate 60 years ago, that this be a moment of recommitment. And those of us in this room, we're the evangelists, we're the frontline soldiers, we are convinced, we do the work. But what we've got to do is convince others. Too many people have a combination of either comfort or fear or something else that really troubles me is called despair. The sense that I have no hope, it can't get better, I'll sit on the side. We've got to work to activate a new movement. And apropos, Mark, to what you said, the multiple steps. It's also a time when our knowledge of history and the civil rights movement needs to go beyond the superficial. There's a lot of superficial understandings without a deep understanding of the strategy. For example, in Montgomery, while the boycott was going on, there was a lawsuit brought by LDF to get the ordinance declared unconstitutional, which ultimately it was. Litigation and protests were working hand in hand, not on separate and independent tracks. Sometimes we get into these false discussions about whether we should try this strategy or that strategy. I'm for all of them, long as they're intelligently done. So I'll just close there to say it is inspiring to be with all of you all. And I look forward to the rest of the day and tomorrow. And let us leave Selma energized with the hope and with the conviction that the battle ahead can and will be won. Thank you.
Let's thank all of our panelists today, Virginia, Damon, Margaret,
Yeah, I'm coming in. Yeah.
April, Ryan. Did a great job, didn't they? We'll see y'all again next year under the bridge.
Mark, can you get up there? Yeah.
Melody. Let me get a picture right quick. Oh, okay. Melody.